Everybody landed on the same two takes the second this trade happened. Take 1. Charlotte got robbed, clueless front office, worst trade ever. Take 2. Minnesota fleeced them, stole a star, Anthony Edwards finally got his sidekick. And both of those takes are wrong. Because the real story here isn't about who won. It's about which team took the bigger risk. And the answer might surprise you. Let's start with what Charlotte actually had, because you need to understand exactly what they gave up before any of this makes sense. This was a team that jumped from 19 wins the year before to 44 wins and a play-in spot. A team that flipped a switch in January and turned into one of the most fun offenses in basketball. At the center of it was a young core that looked genuinely special. Their rookie, Con Canupel, the 4th overall pick, had a historic season, leading the entire NBA in three-pointers made, 273 of them, the first rookie in league history to top that list. And right behind him, one make-back at 272, was LaMelo Ball. Charlotte put 2 guys at the top of the league's three-point leaderboard. The only other teammate duo to ever pull that off was Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. That's the company we're talking about. Their would-be starting 5, Ball, Newepple, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and Mark Williams, posted a reported plus 30.6 net rating together. That's not a good number. That's a cartoon number. And here's the part that stings the most. LaMelo Ball never wanted to leave. In his exit interview, he talked about loving his teammates, believing the team was heading the right direction, and using the offseason to come back better. This wasn't a guy forcing his way out. He stuck around through genuinely rough years, and in 6 seasons, was never given a real co-star. Even his own coach, Charles Lee, spoke about the trade during Summer League with visible difficulty, saying Ball helped build the team's entire foundation and that there was still more for him to achieve. If you stop the story right there, Charlotte got robbed is the correct take. But the story doesn't stop there, because you have to look at the money. By the end of last season, Ball was approaching extension eligibility for something in the range of $119 million, with a supermax ceiling north of $200 million if he made an All-NBA team. Here's the problem. In 6 NBA seasons, LaMelo Ball has never played a single playoff game, not one. And for multiple of those seasons, it wasn't a talent question, it was an availability one, with significant chunks of time missed to ankle injuries. Charlotte was staring down a real decision: commit $250 million long-term to an electric player who's never won anything and has a real injury history, or sell high right after the one season he finally stayed healthy for 72 games. They sold high. That's not a clueless move. It's cold-blooded, but it's the kind of move a smart front office makes and a scared one doesn't. This exact fear has played out elsewhere recently too. Dallas traded away Luka Doncic, a top 3 player in his prime, partly over conditioning and availability concerns tied to a looming supermax, and Doncic was limited to just 22 games that season with various injuries. Boston, fresh off winning the 2024 finals, moved off Jaylen Brown, their own finals MVP, after his $304 million supermax combined with Jason Tatum's deal ate up roughly 70% of the salary cap. Both of those trades are widely viewed as disasters for the team that moved the star. So when Charlotte looked at the LaMelo extension coming down the pipe, they were reading from the exact same fear of the supermax playbook as Dallas and Boston. Here's where Charlotte separates itself though. Dallas moved off their star and got fleeced. Boston moved off their star and got fleeced. Charlotte made the same type of call and didn't get fleeced doing it. Naz Reid isn't a throwaway piece. He's a former 6th man of the year, a 6'11" big who can shoot and put the ball on the floor, and Boston had reportedly been trying to pry him out of Minnesota for most of the season. On top of Reid, Charlotte walked away with a stack of future first-round picks and a record-setting $40.8 million trade exception, essentially a massive coupon they can use to absorb another star's salary down the road. If you're new here, this is exactly the kind of full-picture breakdown we do every week, not just the headline takes everyone else is running with. Hit subscribe so you catch the next one, because there's a lot more to this story that almost nobody's connecting. 2 follow-up moves changed the picture, and almost nobody's tying them back to this trade. First, almost immediately after landing Reid, Charlotte used him and Bridges' contract to open exploratory talks with Boston about Jaylen Brown, according to Michael Scotto. Those talks cooled off, but the fact they happened tells you something. A team stripping for parts doesn't chase a finals MVP. Second, days after the Ball trade, Charlotte flipped Miles Bridges to Phoenix for Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and another unprotected 2033 first. Added up, and Charlotte's sitting on somewhere between 8 and 11 future first-round picks. That's not a team giving up. That's a team doing a total teardown around Brandon Miller and Concanupel, stacking assets, and hunting for a real second star. It's worth being clear about what's rumor and what's actually reported here, because there's a lot of noise online. Some people are claiming Michael Jordan needed cash to cover gambling debts and is running the franchise like a piggy bank. There's no real reporting behind that at all. Jordan sold his majority stake back in 2023 at roughly a $3 billion valuation and never gave a public reason for selling. Others are claiming LaMelo was secretly healthy the whole time, and the team told him to sit and tank for draft position. Nobody outside the organization can actually confirm what happened behind closed doors, and the league has never listed Charlotte among teams it's investigated for tanking. Worth knowing what's speculation and what isn't. There are real risks on Charlotte's side too, and the biggest one is sitting right inside that Knupel stat everyone's been hyping. A huge chunk of his open looks existed because of LaMelo's gravity and playmaking, averaging over 7 assists a game. Without that environment, that shooting volume isn't guaranteed to hold, and there's history working against Charlotte's credibility here too. This is the same franchise that let Kemba Walker, arguably their best player at the time, walk away in 2019 rather than pay him. Charlotte's saying trust the plan to a fan base that's been burned by a version of this plan before. If they sit on this war chest and never cash it in for a real co-star, the Charlotte got robbed crowd was right all along, just for the wrong reason. Now here's why Minnesota should actually be nervous, because almost everyone's calling them the clear winner without looking at what they gave up to get here. The dream version is genuinely scary. Anthony Edwards has been getting double-teamed constantly because he's basically been Minnesota's only real shot creator. Add LaMelo Ball, and defenses can't load up on Edwards anymore, because Ball will make you pay from deep and set the table for everyone else. Chris Finch has been direct about the plan, telling Bleacher Report the idea is to put the ball in Ball's hands early and trust him to make the right read. But to get him, Minnesota completely emptied the tank. They moved Julius Randle, then sent out Naz Reid, and nearly every meaningful pick they had left. And now, they're hard-capped at the second apron. Their core is Rudy Gobert, Anthony Edwards, and LaMelo Ball, plus whatever minimum salary players they can scrape together around them. If this doesn't work, there's no next move. No picks left to trade, no cap flexibility, nothing. Tim Connolly bet the entire franchise on this exact core. Losing Reid didn't just cost them depth, it blew a literal hole in the starting lineup, since he was set to be their starting power forward. The likely fix is sliding Jaden McDaniels up to the 4 and running a 3-guard look with Ball, Edwards, and Ayo Dosunmu, similar to something San Antonio ran last season. But San Antonio could get away with that specifically because Victor Wembanyama anchors everything behind it. Rudy Gobert is a great defender, but he's not Wembanyama, which means Minnesota is stuck playing a smaller front court against a Western Conference full of size, against teams like San Antonio, Oklahoma City, and Utah that have genuinely stacked front courts. And there's the fit question nobody's fully answered yet. Both Edwards and Ball are ball-dominant players who need real touches to be effective, and both are top-tier players when the offense runs through them. Maybe it clicks beautifully, or maybe you've got two guys fighting over the same steering wheel. Minnesota clearly knows this is a real concern, because at Ball's introductory press conference, team president Tim Connolly directly challenged him on the mic about staying available, asking point-blank whether he'd play more than 72 games. Ball reportedly answered, "Hopefully," and Connolly immediately shot back, "Hopefully? Don't say hopefully." It was framed as a joke in the room, but it landed as a pretty direct, on-record demand for accountability from a front office that just bet everything on this exact player staying healthy. Chris Finch has echoed the same concern publicly, telling the Minnesota Star-Tribune the team sees the criticisms of Ball's shot selection and expects him to clean it up, especially in a Western Conference where, in his words, every minute of basketball is going to be meaningful. And Minnesota isn't just getting pushback from anonymous internet takes here. Real, respected league voices have gone after this trade hard. Michael Wilbon put it about as bluntly as possible, saying flatly, LaMelo Ball will get you in trouble, pointing out that Ball misses roughly 30 games a year and contrasting that directly with Anthony Edwards' reputation for playing through everything. Wilbon also raised the front court size question directly, asking how Minnesota plans to look San Antonio, Oklahoma City, or Utah in the eye when those teams are all loaded with size, and Minnesota just traded away one of their few real interior options. Wilbon's broader point was that Minnesota had already made 2 conference finals appearances and didn't need a dynamic overhaul, they needed a tweak, and instead, they gave up a proven healthy piece in Reed for a player who, in his words, isn't as valuable given how often he's actually available. Bill Simmons was arguably even more direct. He acknowledged that on paper, LaMelo Ball solves a lot of Minnesota's problems, then added, "There's one problem. He doesn't play. He's played 2 seasons of the last 6. Simmons went on to describe how carefully Charlotte managed his workload last season, calling it driving him like a race car, just driving him slowly around the block, and noted Charlotte kept his minutes down early before ramping up, which Simmons suggested almost looked like Charlotte already knew they were going to trade him and wanted to protect his value. Look at the actual numbers behind that criticism too. Outside of last season's 72-game campaign, Ball appeared in just 22 games and 47 games in the 2 seasons before that, with recurring ankle problems, including a sprain aggravated on 2 separate occasions and a fractured ankle that ended 1 season outright. That's the receipt behind Simmons calling this 2 seasons of the last 6. It's not an exaggeration, it's close to literal. There's also real pressure building on the other side of the conference that makes Charlotte's decision to hoard assets instead of sit on them even more urgent. The East just got significantly scarier. Giannis Antetokounmpo landed in Miami alongside Bam Adebayo. Washington has quietly built a genuinely loaded roster around A.J. Dibonsa, Anthony Davis, and Trae Young, adding Chris Middleton back into the mix too. If a young piece like Alex Sarr takes a real step forward, that's a legitimately scary team nobody's talking about yet. For Charlotte, that means sitting on a war chest and doing nothing simply isn't an option. The pressure isn't whether they were right to trade LaMelo. It's whether they actually have the conviction to turn all those picks and that trade exception into a real star before the opportunity passes them by. So here's where this actually lands. The real story of this trade isn't Charlotte getting robbed or Minnesota winning outright. It's that both teams made completely opposite bets, and most of the public reaction aimed its panic at the wrong side. Charlotte bet on the future. They sold an injury-prone star at the exact peak of his value, dodged a $250 million risk, and built a genuine war chest to go hunting for a real second star. Minnesota bet on right now. They went all in with zero safety net on a player whose health has never been guaranteed in the toughest conference in basketball. And the entire outcome swings on one single question that's followed LaMelo Ball his entire career. Can he actually stay on the floor? If he does, Minnesota wins this trade exactly where it matters, in May and June. And nobody will care that their bench is thin or their front court is undersized. If his ankles give out again, Charlotte quietly pulled off one of the smartest teardowns in recent memory, and they've got 8 to 11 first-round picks to prove it. So what do you think? Did Minnesota just build a championship-caliber backcourt, or did they hand their entire future to a player who's played 2 full healthy seasons out of his last 6? And does Charlotte actually have the discipline to cash in this war chest for a real star? Or does this become another Kemba Walker situation where the picks just sit there? Let me know what you think in the comments.